Warm welcome to our good friend Dean Clifford.
That's borderline condescending. You be nice.
Yeah, I'll try.
Well, the other Dean Clifford that would have been here today had a handlebar mustache that he shaved off in his car about half an hour before the speech started, so I should have kept that on for yesterday. Great. Boy, where to start with all this? I normally don't have a course outline when I come to these speeches, mostly because I haven't been doing them very long now. For some reason, people actually want to come and listen to me rant, which is great. We're going to go over a lot of stuff today, though. I can talk for days, not cover the same topic twice. We're going to go over the most relevant stuff. Much like I mentioned to the guys yesterday in Hamilton, though, I cover a few things right off the top stuff I'm not going to talk about, and the reason I'm not going to talk about them. Because the whole point of the videos that I've been getting out there is I noticed there was a lack of the core concepts and just basic knowledge people should have before they're doing anything. People want to people have had no experience and they lost against a parking ticket, and the next thing we know, you hear, oh yeah, now I'm going after the banks for my mortgage or something else ridiculous, and it's like, well, you just lost against a traffic ticket, and now you're going to try to go after the banks for your mortgage? Like, that's pretty brave. You're going to lose your house, dude, right? Sure as shit. I mean, with 99% certainty, that is what's happening. And people have come up to me at some of these conferences, and they want to pull me off to the side, and they're like, hey, but man, I'm like 3 months behind. I got to make a 3 months mortgage payments on my house. If they're going to foreclose on me, what should I do? I said, well, make the payments. Well, yeah, but I can't afford it. I said, then sell the house. He said, well, that's not really the answer I was looking for. And I said, well, that's the one you're going to get. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, Like, hey, just pay me $10,000 and I'll take you to the back room and show you how to discharge that mortgage. And I'm trying to lose, and I'm just going to say, oh man, that judge screwed you over.
That's good.
All right, it's not my process. That judge wronged me completely. No, like all these programs that are out there for discharging mortgages, paying off AFB and credit cards, anything else where people, the core concept of their belief is not in freedom or sovereignty or just being left alone or figuring out who they are and what their standing in life is. They just want some shit for free. And I'm kind of here to fight a lot of that stuff and get a lot of the wrong beliefs that are around out of the system, so people stop signing up for programs and paying thousands of dollars for stuff that is never going to help them. Well, it's not a way to turn it. Okay, so I'm controlling that. So we'll go there. So I don't cover any of those topics for the same reason that you're going to get a speech from a judge if you try to go in and fight a mortgage. And what they're looking at. It doesn't matter whether or not you can, what the bank has done with your promissory note. I don't know what people's backgrounds here are. There's some credit and commerce people, and we know what's going on with the mortgages, so we're not going to touch on that. For the less experienced people who are, want to just kind of get all gung-ho and go out there and start fighting people and everything, number one, don't do that. Until you have a very solid background in this, and that takes years. It takes years to get a solid background in this stuff. Going out and causing fights and getting in trouble with people is just going to get you in trouble that you don't want. Like the first time people hear that they don't need a driver's license to travel, they've got no real problems in life. They're just, oh man, I don't need a driver's license? Woo! They'll throw it in the garbage and they're like, man, I'm just going to go drive around and I get pulled over so I can tell him I don't need a license. And no, unless, it's like hearing about this new sport, UFC, and then going, yeah man, I want to do that, and hopping into the ring with Brock Lesnar. Like, you don't do that, right? That's fallible. That's just a not very good way to approach this kind of stuff. And what is a license in Quebec and Ontario? What is it, $50? $90 bucks? Okay, they're $90. I don't know. I haven't had one in like 8 or 9 years. I don't recommend people do that right off the start, by the way. Pay the $90. Don't speed. And don't drink and drive. And how many problems are you going to have? You know? Like, yeah, I understand. Well, yeah, but I should need permission to. You know what, though? Until you're in a position to actually defend that, just pay the money. Because you're going to get a ticket, you're going to go to court, you're going to fight in court, you're going to be held in contempt, they're going to throw you in for 7 days, hold you for a psych evaluation. You probably lose your job if you have one because you haven't shown up for a week, and then you're going to get stuck paying the rent. And then you probably really will lose your home when you can't afford your mortgage payments, all because you just want to drive with a license. Just pay it for now, until people get caught up with the concepts and get a lot of them. There's so much disinfo on the web, believe me. If you do half the processes are out there to go by a traffic ticket, you're going to lose. Yeah, sorry.
I
don't want to start to interfere in my jurisdiction here.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go over a lot of different things today. I just wanted to get that kind of stuff out of the way, and the fact that people are coming into this with the wrong mentality as well. So I won't talk any more about that. Boy, I wish I was rolling like I was yesterday. I had some trouble thinking about things here, but that's okay. Glad to be in Quebec, by the way. I'll start off with that. Very disappointed in the fact that when I got here, I just wanted to go find a cafe au lait. I figured it's Quebec. You can drink cafe au laits around here. I wanted to be towards Tim Hortons. I mean, I've got half of those down the street in Winnipeg. So we're going to have to find a latte shop here because I'm going to have an actual Quebec latte. So okay. Questions. If people have any questions, they want to know specific things, write it down. We're going to have, I'll look through some questions later on, trying to answer things I can for people instead of people, blurting stuff out or wanting to have debates with me because they know a topic better than I do. Okay, that's great. I'll come to your seminar when you want to have one. Well, then you can tell me all about your philosophy, so that's fine. Other than that, it seems like people here are going to be pretty low key, so I don't think we have any problems. Start with, again, the most basic of stuff that I talk about in the videos. I'm sure everybody saw the newer one from Chilliwack, maybe, if anybody's been watching my stuff, and that's why they're here. That kind of covers more of the both sides of the equation I was missing in the earlier videos that were never meant to be online. I think I talked about that also. That was like a group of 5 people in Winnipeg, maybe 8 at the most, that were so lost, they had no concept of what was going on. So I said, well, come by my office, I'll get the whiteboard, I'll start teaching you guys some stuff. They recorded it, and they asked me if they could put it on the internet. I said, well, whatever, for the 100 people that are going to watch it. That's led to this. Be careful for, I don't know, how many new people are there to do with like cost sovereignty online? I think everybody who's got some background, but new people. I usually do give a warning and advisement with it that it is contagious. It does start to take over your life, and then other things just don't become important anymore. And your career starts to suffer, and usually your relationships as well, so just be warned about that. Yeah. Okay, we're just going to go right back. I'm going to go off topic lots, by the way, because I remember things as I'm going through what I like to teach people, and both sides of the equation to do with trust law and what's going on and how the government's doing what they're doing. And I really try to concentrate mainly on, when you understand the concepts, you're not going to need to ask questions later on, like, well, how do I do this specific thing? And what kind of a letter should I send for this? Well, what do I call the letter, right? People are going to have to start to get the understanding of when you go back to the original jurisdiction where you are the sovereign, right? It's more important what you call things, right? This is my ball game now. If you're going to come into my jurisdiction, you're going to play my game. Same way government gets you to go into their jurisdiction, and you got to play their game. They're no different from you, right? So I'm going to start off with a couple of bubbles and explain all that. But like I spoke to you about yesterday, people who think they're going to learn this stuff and then go into a courtroom and, man, I'm gonna walk in there and I'm going to hand that judge their ass. He's not going to see me coming, man. He's going to run from that room terrified of me. No, that's not going to happen. Never be expecting that. You're not going to beat a judge in the courtroom. You're not going to scare him into running out of the courtroom. If he gets up and he leaves, it's just because he doesn't want to deal with you, and they're going to issue a warrant for your arrest for non-appearance. And the next time you get brought in, you're going to be in chains, and you're going to have a sheriff beside you telling you better shut the frig up before they take you out back and beat you. Right? So I've been there. I've done that. That's where people can learn from my experiences. I got no problem doing that.
They beat you up?
What's that?
They beat you up?
No, they threatened to. I don't think they were actually stupid enough to do it. That wouldn't have been a good idea. Right? I got a chain around my wrist. I can actually choke pretty good with that if I get on top of something. Yeah, I never came to that. They did not like me getting feisty in the courtroom. Right? And I had to explain to them when they dragged me out afterwards. I'm like, look, dude, this is a battleground. I'm in court. I said, I've been polite and courteous with you. I've been polite to everybody when you're locked up. I said, when you bring me in the courtroom, I got a judge who's trying to ignore me. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be belligerent. That's a war zone. Leave me alone if I'm going to do my job. And they actually understood that. They're like, no, okay. Don't be afraid, though, to be threatened with, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, if you're going to do a process and you're going to start down a path doing this stuff, don't stop halfway. That just makes it very bad for the rest of us, because they're just going to be like, oh, it's going to be another one of those guys just goes away, after the third letter kind of thing, right? So that doesn't help anybody. And be prepared to go all in. If you're going to play poker, if you're going to play Texas Hold'em, if you're not prepared to go all in, don't play. Don't play. Just stay in their little world for now and be a good little peon, little servant until you're ready to actually play the game, do it seriously, and pledge and put up at stake the same type of stuff that the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were willing to pledge. Right? When they said, look, we want to be free from this tyranny, we're pledging our lives, our reputation, our fortunes, everything. We're going to die for this belief. And you really almost have to have that same mentality when you're doing this kind of stuff. If you really want to get serious about it, I don't mean if you're doing a parking ticket. That's just fun. Go practice with that stuff. Go get one just to practice with that stuff. But other than that, if you really want to get into serious stuff like getting out of income taxes and everything else, you gotta have the knowledge and you gotta have the conviction to do it. Don't do it unless you got both of those, because you're just gonna get yourself in trouble. You're then gonna go in a panic looking for some system out there, someone charges all sorts of money to help you, and they're your rights, right? They're yours to enforce. No one's gonna be able to come and help you out and give you a magic document that's gonna, the judge is gonna read this and just go, oh my God, look at the word that guy used. Well, shit, I better rule in his favor. He's really going to mess me up. No, like they don't care, right? The silver bullet mentality. Everybody's like, oh man, I just got to have that one money line. I just go walk into the courtroom. I just stand up there and say, blah, 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 blah. That, bam, everything's over. It doesn't exist. Okay? Even if you were given a silver bullet, I said this yesterday, you don't have the gun to fire it. Not many people do. Wait till you have that gun. Then your gun is going to automatically fire silver bullets. And that's going to be knowledge and just the presence when you walk into the courtroom, the confidence. That's actually why I walked into the one there yesterday with this big handlebar mustache to give my speech. And I asked everybody, what's this on my lip? And they're like, it's a mustache. And I said, no, it's evidence of confidence. Because I look like an idiot. Right? It's confidence. When I walk into a courtroom, I'm confident. And they know you're confident. They're like, oh, okay, this guy must actually have something. And then when you can actually speak and back up what you're saying, and you know you're right, you're not being an idiot, then they're going to start to respect you. Until then, you're not going to get any respect. And that's simply because, and this is why you won't hand judge their asses in the courtroom. This is their job. They do this day in, day out, the same way I'm a contractor. I frame houses, I build houses, I pour concrete. When someone walks onto my job site, I know in the first 3 sentences that they speak, if they're full of shit, and actually know what they're talking about, or if they don't. Body language is confidence, and it's their ability just in the first 3 sentences to say, talk about something on the job site. If they're using the right lingo. We got a job site lingo. If a guy walks onto my job site, he just took 3 years of carpentry in school, and he walks onto my job site and starts calling tools by the textbook name, I know he's never been on a job site, ever in my life. But man, he read an awful lot about it. Okay, these people know this. It's their job. They do it. You're not going to fool them. Never, ever assume you're going to fool them or have a document that's going to scare them. There isn't one. So that being said, and a simple reason for that, and again, I always like to go back to construction examples. Because it's real-world examples people can actually digest. But if if you know all the basics, this is why the basics are so important. You know the basics of framing. You can frame a wall on your own. You don't need help from anybody. You can figure out things for yourself. If you're building a window frame, you know the framing concepts. You can build. You don't have to go to somebody and say, hey, how do I do this little part of this wall over here, right? Then I know you're not a framer. You're not a framer. You don't understand the basic concepts. If you did, you would know how to make that window frame. So they know when you know what you're talking about. And again, if someone builds a window frame wrong or does something to do with concrete wrong or makes a form wrong, I know by looking at it at a glance. I don't have to walk up there and go and inspect the window frame. I can look at it and I say, that's wrong. That is shit, redo it. And that's what they know. When they look at your documents, they know it's shit just by looking at it. They don't need to read everything that's in there. They just glance at it and they throw it off to the side. And people are like, man, that judge, he screwed me over. He didn't even look at my documents. I'll say, no, yeah, he did. He just knows by looking at it that it's crap and he was right. And if you can't even write a proper document, you think he's worried about you coming after him? No. He's like, oh yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, you're going to file a real good lawsuit against me that I really have. That's why they seem so just, I guess I'm in Quebec, I can use the word laissez-faire around here, I guess, with the judge's attitude. So let's get on to one of the big points I'm going to talk about today is jurisdiction. People have no comprehension of what jurisdiction really is. I have people that are experienced in this stuff. Man, I've been doing this for 10 years. I took stuff all the way to Supreme Court of Canada, and they ruled against me. And I asked them 3 questions, then I tell them exactly what they did wrong. It's simple. They don't understand jurisdiction at all. Man, I took that all the way to Supreme Court of Canada. I said, okay, well, and you lost? Yeah. I said, okay, well, did you raise it? Did you bring up an appealable issue? He goes, well, they don't know what an appealable issue is, first of all. I was like, okay, well, and was it a statutory charge? I'm like, well, yeah, it's a statutory charge, like a criminal charge some type. I said, well, what was your defense when you took it to the Supreme Court? Well, it was common law, like some biblical reference or another thing. I said, okay, it's lost. They can't hear that. Well, it's the Supreme Court of Canada. I said, yeah, that doesn't matter. You don't understand jurisdiction. Of course it's the Supreme Court of Canada. But the charge exists in a certain jurisdiction. You're trying to bring a defense in from another jurisdiction. It doesn't exist. And he said, yeah, that's what the judge said. Well, I know that's what he said. He knows what he's talking about. Jeez. So we're going to go over all this stuff today if I don't fall through the floor here. That's a soft spot.
Main carbon.
Yeah. Want to make sure I got my solid foundation for you. Okay. Another problem with people is they want to talk to me about they're really caught up on figuring out what exactly the government is and how deep the rabbit hole goes, and taking, the red pill and man chasing us all the way back to the DTC, is that what it's called, whatever, Depository Trust Company. Man, I know what that bank's doing with this stuff, and I know where the birth certificates are coming from, and it all goes back to the DTC and all this other stuff, and they really think that proving everything's going on behind the scenes has any relevancy at all to their situation, and it doesn't. And that's where I'm going to start the first part of my, you guys will be able to see, I'll try to move out of the way here. The first part that I got to cover, this is the most basic concept you can get into. This is, even people get this wrong, okay? Very simple one. Understand this concept. I've got 2 bubbles. I've added this to my lecture now, so I've had to go even further back into original jurisdiction to help people, just to get the foundation right from the start. Okay, we got 2 bubbles. And if anybody took statistics in university, which I did, it was boring, I don't recommend it. You'll see you have 2 mutually exclusive events right here. Okay? So I call the first one me. Now I kind of have a good handle on what me is. I don't know, I'll never know exactly what me is because only my creator knows that. But through evidence and experiences in life, I got some a good handle on what I am and my ability to control my surroundings, and that's what the bubble includes. My ability to control my surroundings or influence things around me in this world. Okay, that's what the bubble includes. So everything that I know to be me, I know it's not me, and I know what I'm able to control and influence. That's the me bubble. Everything else, I don't care what it is. Everything else is in this bubble. them. Okay? I don't care what they are. That's them. Their ability to... Oh. That's a little bit better.
Sorry, Dee.
That's all good. So, we're completely separate. And this is already where the jurisdiction issue starts to come up, is at what point can them interact with me? And that's where the role of contracts, law, and jurisdiction comes into play. I'm just over here doing my own thing, and the only real interaction I have with anything that's not me is by way of, say, contract, or by consensual interaction with anything else, be it government, another person, right? I'm like, you're you, I'm me. Any interaction we're going to have is going to be voluntary, by consent, and we're all on equal standing. Right? It's a very basic concept, and I have people say, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. You know, I said, no, you don't know that, because you're more worried about what they are than you are about what you are. So you don't understand that concept. You spent the last 10 years trying to unravel what they are. And I don't care what they are. That's why people bring me all these new definitions they find sometimes too. Man, I looked it up in this act, and this definition down here says this. And I said, well, okay, it's a definition in a statute under the Canadian government, which is a foreign power. I don't give a shit about that definition. Would you like to hear my definition? If it differs from their definition, then I guess we have a dispute. There's no contract in place that says what we agree a definition of a word is, because we have no business relationship together. So it starts to get complicated from there. But this is the most basic jurisdictional explanation you go back to. So I start with that, the me versus them. And I like to take this to an absurdity now to make it very clear on what's going on here. People are like, well, yeah, but I explained this yesterday, and I think I'll show back too. People are like, well, yeah, but you know, the problem is you know, the government is this, and it all goes back to the Bar Association in England, and the Inner Temple of this, and the DTC and the World Bank, and it's all controlled by, you know, Queen Elizabeth and the Pope, and they're both half reptilian, and you know, and they have a starship in orbit right now above the Earth, and they got these motherships and stuff. And people actually told me this kind of stuff. Right? Like, it just gets more and more ridiculous. They're like, yeah, we can't, you know, we're enslaved because they're all watching us right now. You know, man, there's a camera right there, and they're paying attention to everything I'm doing, and we're just all slaves and all this kind of stuff. And the reptilians are from the Pleiades galaxy, by the way. I'd like to
I
just
heard
let
they
everybody
taste
know
like
that.
chicken.
Yeah.
I heard they taste like chicken.
They do taste like chicken. I think they think we taste like chicken. That's probably why they came here actually to enslave us, right? No, I don't know. But I've heard all this stuff, and I'm like, well, that's nice. What does that got to do with anything? Like any of it. You can walk into court and say, well, Your Honor, it doesn't matter that I was parked illegally and got this parking ticket because the reptilians have a mothership around Earth right now. Right? It's nonsense. Now that sounds absurd, but it's just as lawfully and legally absurd as any other argument when it gets to them. It doesn't matter. That's the same way they view it. Any of this nonsense that people always go off on about the government, and we're going to get into all that, right? Not only that, so I'm going to start by saying it doesn't matter about any of that. And this is why it doesn't matter. Pretend all these conspiracies are true. Pretend all the Illuminati and Masonry stuff is true, and they got agents everywhere, and there's 8 cops in this room right now, and man, they've been following me for 6 months, watching me teach people stuff just to record everything and monitor me, right? And they're going to assassinate me at some point. All this ridiculous stuff. And they're reporting back to their master, who's a Mason, and he's reporting back to his half reptilian master, you know, and all this stuff. And I got, you know, and then, okay, if that's all true, let's just pretend it is true. What can I do about that? Short of me going home and going into my shop, and I have all the tools to do it, and building a starship and going to war against the reptilian race from the Pleiades galaxy, or taking down the whole Illuminati organization, what can I do about that? Nothing. So people need to bring everything back to what's real. What can I affect? What can I actually affect in my sphere of influence? If it's out of your ability to do anything about it, then why would you spend years researching it and trying to do something about it? You can't. Okay? So start with that. That's a very fundamental concept. It sounds absurd, but it's actually so important. You got to master what this is. How are you going to interact with anything else until you even know what you are, what your boundaries are, what your rights are? Most people I talk to have been in this movement for 10 years. They don't even know what their rights are. How are you out there trying to enforce your rights? You don't even know what they are. Start with that. That's your starting point, right in here. Right? Now I don't have a brush. Look at that piece of some. Oh, never mind.
Might work.
Yeah, hopefully this comes off. Yeah, there we go.
Excellent.
So, I think yesterday I waited until later in the lesson to do this, but now I already had the bubbles up here. So, this would be the next stage of that. Once you know who you are, and you want to interact with anything else, contractually speaking, you've got the me bubble now still, right? And you are point A. And point A exists inside this circle. It's everything that's used, your sphere of influence, everything you can control. Now you want to contract with the government. I want to contract with you to tile your bathroom. I want to interact with any other entity. We form a contract. It can be verbal, it could be anything. Preferably the written word. So it is written, so it shall be done. So you want to get the details of the contract down. Okay? Now you have another party you contracted with. And you got them. And point B is them. Now you got the terms of your interaction together, which exists in this part of the bubbles. And that point is called AB, if you study statistics. And that is the jurisdiction of your relationship terms. Just because I hire somebody to do my tiling, can they walk into my house, take my TV, steal my truck, drive back to their house, and go start taking money out of my bank accounts? No, because that's not within the confines of our agreement. So the notion that the government can run your life because there may or may not be a contract somewhere in place between you two parties is nonsense. It's complete nonsense. And we're going to get into that yet too. So as soon as you define your business relationship, your interaction with one another, then you'll discover that actually these people have almost no control over your life. It's all done by your ignorance and your consent. Right? Start with that. Now we'll get into the birth certificate name, what the name is, its relevancy, jurisdictional issues, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll start to move a little faster now, but again, that's the core concept. And everybody always wants to say, well, yeah, no, I know that. Teach me the advanced stuff, man. I want to see one of your 20-page letters that just knocks these people on their ass, right? There isn't one. It all comes from up here, okay? There's no template you can use that's going to work. This is the advanced stuff. Because you understand this and you want to move on to taking down the line, you want to go take out a bank. People have been running finance for 7,000 years. You want to take them on? Enjoy, because you're going to wind up like the other 99.9% of people that have lost their homes that have challenged the banks in the courts. That is changing, but I'm not going to get into that in this discussion. So again, I'm just going to elaborate on that in just 2 seconds real quick. Okay, I've been in business for 15 years. I have rental properties, I have a construction business, I have everything. I haven't filed or paid taxes in 15 years now. I don't get mortgages from banks. I have no car liens or lease a car. I have nothing like that. You can absolutely exist and live like that and be free from these people. I had to learn how to do that back in the day when I first started this fight, but it is very possible. You don't need the banks, you don't need their mortgages, you don't need to lease vehicles and cars. You can do things the old-fashioned way, right? But everybody that gets themselves into all this debt, and get credit cards and rack them right up, and expensive homes they can't afford, and that brand new car, truck they always wanted, and then they got a flat screen TV and a home theater entertainment system at home, they've got everything they've ever wanted, they're 22 years old. And then they complain about being broke and having no money. And then bitch to the government saying it's their fault when they just got themselves into $750,000 worth of debt, right? That's the other thing people sometimes don't like about my lectures. They come to me for answers, and the first thing I do is I hold up the mirror and say, well, did you look at this yet today? Right? The problem's you. Don't blame everybody else because you messed up yourself by getting yourself so far into debt that you're not looking for excuses to get out of it. That's a lack of responsibility. It's not a free man or a sovereign mentality, right? Well, I just want to get out of all this now. Well, then you are a slave. You're a debtor. And you're going to be for the rest of your life. I think that conform with CI Creditors and Commerce beliefs, or
Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah, creditor mentality, right? Assume liability for your actions. Yeah, I messed up. I'm sorry, guys. You know, that guy that was going to lose his home because he didn't want to make his mortgage payments. You know what? Go to the bank and say, look, I'm a dumbass. I'm sorry. I got myself way over my head. Can we work out some payments here so I can keep my home for now? And then, okay, yeah, we'll extend the terms. We'll do something. You know, you can negotiate with people. That's what gentlemen do. And you work out your problems until you want to go the route that some people want to go with fighting things, which will work. But I'm not getting into that. I don't like people getting into the movement and watching one of my videos and saying, yeah, man, Dean said you could discharge a mortgage and run out and you lose their home, and it's my fault. So, yeah, it's my fault. Again, people don't want to assume liability for their own actions. Everybody else when something doesn't work. Okay, so we'll move on to the next. I start off now with the jurisdictional cross. I think I've adapted the name to me. Except I must stop right here. Okay. Now, I'm a man. Everybody knows I'm a man. The judge knows I'm a man. The government knows I'm a man. Walking into court against a statutory charge and trying to say, well, I'm a man, I'm a sovereign, that doesn't apply to me, okay? You're going to lose. I'm a natural person, that doesn't apply to me. You're going to lose. You're going to lose every time you make these arguments that are nonsense. That's like walking on my job site, telling me you know how to frame, and then building something that I just look at and go, what the hell? Get off my site, you're an idiot. They know that. And that's what that is when you walk into a court, and that's your excuse. I'm a man, this doesn't apply to me, okay? They know you're a man. They've even said that. People, you know, they walk in, I'm a man, that doesn't apply to me. And the judge says, like, yes, you are a man. And I'm a man, and that guy's a man. We're all men here, except for that woman over there. She's a woman. You're guilty. Oh, got loud again. No, it's all good. Okay, so there's no point of contention there. We know that we're men. We know we're created by God. We have God-given, granted, unalienable rights, whatever you want to call it. And for lack of a better word, because God created man and my parents needed to identify me when it was time to yell at me to clean my room, to differentiate me from my brother, they gave me a name. It was a given name, and it's Dean. So instead of writing the word man like I normally write, I'm just going to write Dean. Now, beyond this, the spelling, I tend to generalize because I want to keep things simple. Yes, the upper lowercase spelling does make a difference in certain situations, but it never makes a difference for court, ever. And there's reasons for that. And we're going to get into all that. So, two things happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to write the name here again in all capital letters on both sides. Except I'm going to spell it properly. So there's 2 Dean Cliffords in all capital letters. It's actually a lot more than that, but we're going to stick with 2 today. There's an unlimited number of all capital letter Dean Cliffords. Infinity minus 1. We're going to stick with 2 for today. The arguments when you walk into court, I'm not a corporation. Irrelevant. You're going to lose like everybody else does. We're going to go into what's actually going on, what jurisdiction is, and in very broad terms, the name and what the name actually is. So I was born, so I'm told, on this land. My parents filled out a live birth record, right? So we're going to put on one side here, we're going to go live birth record. And we'll just put LBR for live birth record. Okay?
I don't care if on the live birth record, if the name is spelt in upper lowercase. I don't care if it's spelt in entirely uppercase. I don't care if it's spelled in all lowercase. I don't care if it's spelled in hieroglyphics. And I don't care if it's spelled in runic symbols. Okay? It makes no difference how the name is spelled on the document. And we're going to get into why. So there's a live birth record on file, registered with the government. That is a fact. And that's what we care about today. We care about facts, okay? Then you get something else in the mail weeks later. And was it a certificate of birth here? Ontario and Quebec, it's all, yeah, certificate of birth. So I can call it just BC, birth certificate. Everybody's going to know what I'm talking about. Birth certificate. Same name. It's got the same birth date. A lot of the information on that document is the same. So we're going to get into some of the differences between the two names here. And I've corrected what was on some of the prior videos where I think a while back I was still operating under the presumption that it is and it isn't. I used to think, okay, well, it's the receipt for this document, right? Because UCC gets into, they call it warehouse receipts, and I looked up the definition of warehouse receipt, and it's like, yeah, okay, well, that, according to the UCC, that describes what this is. Well, just because it describes what it might be doesn't mean that's what it is, and it is something different. So it's not a receipt for the live birth record that was filed with the government. It is something else. If you call Vital Statistics and you ask them about registering babies or registering children, the first thing they're going to tell you is we don't register baby, we don't register humans like men or women. We record events. That's all it is. It's a record of an event. Because government, the original reason that they were created was to maintain public records, right? And that's a good thing. We're going to get into that registration, and why my challenge has been unanswered yet as to why somebody can't provide any evidence that registration is anything other than what I say it is, just a public record of an event. Public records are good, okay? If I record something in the public that I own it, and I'll specify what ownership is, for instance, land. If I'm the registered owner of the land, I don't own the land, okay? He who creates owns. What you own is the right of use of the land. That's what ownership is, okay? And it's good that it's recorded that I'm the one that has the right of use of the land, because that way, and I can only be denied that, and it can only be taken away from me by due process of law. Well, that's a good thing, right? As opposed to 1,000 years ago, or even maybe 100 and something years ago, someone could just show up with guns and say, get out of here, it's my house now, right? And I'm out in the street, and I call the police, and I'm like, they're in my house. And they're like, do you have any proof it's your house? Well, I was in there 10 minutes ago. Well, they're in there now. Possession, 9/10 of the law. Like, oh, well, I guess I'm screwed, okay? So it's a good thing. Registration transfers no interest in property. When you register something, it's recorded. An event is recorded. No interest in property transfers. Like when people say, oh, well, the live birth record is registered with the government, therefore they own your body and your soul. Like, come on, you guys, are you kidding me, guys? Where are you getting this stuff from? And they say, well, I heard it somewhere. No one's ever been able to provide me a source. And if they do, it's usually buried in some statute somewhere, which is meaningless. I don't care about that, right? Statutory definitions are garbage. I stopped listening to any of that stuff about 2 years ago. And it turns out I've been on a cataclysmic ride upwards since I stopped listening to all the crap that's on the internet and started doing all my own research, right back to square one. Okay, so let's look at the differences in the documents. That's the rants I talk about where I go off topic to explain things. It's going to happen a lot, don't worry. And by the way, if anybody's confused by something I say because I go off on a tangent, actually, please feel free to speak up and let me know, because I think we established yesterday, and Roberta was there for that because I've been in this for so long, I take for granted that the stuff I know just comes naturally to me, and that other people have to absorb it. Sometimes it just doesn't click to me that, okay, I got to go slower or do something else because people don't know what I'm talking about. I think even one of the guys who was there yesterday, especially for beginners, they said the first time they watched one of my videos, they had to shut it off after 20 minutes. They just went, like, make it stop, So if that's happening, let me know and I'll see if I can't.
What is DCT? You said something
Oh,
about
DTC, Depository Trust Company. Okay. Yeah, it's irrelevant. I don't care what they do with the document afterwards. It's none of my business. It's in the them bubble. because I can prove what my claim is to it, and that's in the me bubble, so that's where I concentrate, because there I can actually affect things. I can't contact the DTC and tell them I want to borrow money against my live birth record. So it's irrelevant for me to even know where it is. Just confusing info. Which leads me on to another point. A lot of people tell me, well, this is just way too much information for any human being to ever want to learn and all that kind of stuff whenever I'm going off on all this stuff. But the same person will sit down with me and give me 20 years of statistics on hockey, football, and baseball over a beer, right? And they get real-time updates on their phone. Oh my God, so-and-so just got traded. They're like, holy shit, can you believe that? And I'm like, I don't even know who that is. I'm like, what hockey team? Oh, so they have a hockey team? Like, I don't know that stuff, but man, these guys just, they rattle this off, and then you want to bring this stuff? Oh man, that's too much for me to learn. Like, are you kidding me? You know every player that plays in the NHL, and you don't want to spend 5 minutes to know your rights? Then you don't deserve them. Keep being a slave. Enjoy it. So that's that rant. I'm going to move on now. No problem. I'm good at that. So there's obvious differences in the document, and there's reasons why we're going to go into that. And some of the first differences being whose signature is on the live birth record. I've got mine here. Some people want me to hold it up. Perhaps the clipboard there, Roberto? I keep it in there. It's in the clipboard. Just bring the whole thing up. Yep. Nope. Mother and father. Okay. Live birth record. I'll blank out the name so the government doesn't know who I am, because I'm kidding. My father's signature is on this document. Okay? That's, without getting into more of the particulars on this particulars of a live birth, I do what a judge would do. I know what's important on a document. I scroll down it, and I say, okay, I look at it, I know my father's signature is on this document. That's all I need to know for now. So I'm just going to write that down. So on the live birth record, and again, I don't care about the spelling, upper, lower case. It's something that was created for me and recorded for my benefit. And my father's signature is on it. Some people, it's their mother's signature. For me, it's my father's signature. Either way, it was one of my parents, one of my guardians that signed that document. That's incredibly important. Okay, so I'm just going to write parents. Signature. Whose signature is on the birth certificate? Registrar, or the Director of Vital Statistics. So we're just going to round that up to government. Okay. Now, if the birth certificate is supposed to be a receipt for this, why wouldn't they just give you a copy of this? They don't. Not only that, your parent's signature is on one, the government's signature is on the other. That tells you right there that they are two separate things. And what those things are, we're going to get into. So two separate events has happened here. And in fact, it's amusing. That's why I love traveling. One of the guys that came to the show yesterday, he was like, he had some case law for me that was at first, even I thought might be something to do with proving me wrong, the birth certificate is something other than what I thought, and it turns out actually what it did was it actually supported in a way that I couldn't have, in a way I wouldn't have been able to come up with exactly what I'm talking about, and actually gave me some clarity that's even better. So I'm going to go over with that today too. It's great. I love when people bring that kind of stuff to me. So we'll go through the differences in the document right now, right? Your parent's signature is on one, the government signature is on the other. And I'm drawing a bit of a blank right now, but I'll go off on a little tangent here, because a lot of the information on the documents are the same, like the birth certificate, the name might be spelt the same. Two differences we'll note right now is that the live birth record always states given, right, and family name on it. Given and surname. Given or Christian, in fact. Given or Christian, and then surname. So let's start with that. So we're going to go given surname, and the other document just says name. So, either way though, it still looks the same. It's still both Dean Clifford in all capital letters. Now, a few years back, I had two Ford F-350s. They were both 2003 Fords. They were both dualies. They were both black. They were both Lariats. They were both tan leather interior. Okay? They were the identical truck, both diesels, and they were both my work trucks. I could make two separate columns and list every way that those trucks were identical in nature, in description, in all capital letter F-350 spelling. Now, if I make out a bill of sale for something and I describe that truck in detail, and I can prove that I own that truck, can I just walk into the parking lot of any mall and find a truck that fits that description and hop in and drive it away and say, this is mine? Look, this describes that truck. Of course I can't, right? That's not proof I own that truck, even though it looks like that truck. It's going to get reported stolen, and how are they going to know it's not my truck? VIN number, right? It's got a separate number. So there is a point where it becomes distinctly different, right? So that kind of poses another problem too, is that, I won't get into that right now, I'm going to wait on that. So if you want, at this point, we can actually start calling the names. If you want to call them vessels in commerce, you can call it a vessel in commerce. If you want to call it a vehicle, a commercial vehicle, call it that as well. Almost every philosophy on the law out there right now, I can fit into the model I'm going to show you guys, because it all is the same thing. It's all describing the same thing that's going on. So that's why it doesn't matter what the spelling of the name is, right? Because there's probably a million F-350s driving around the roads in Canada right now, right? What matters is whose signature is on the VIN number, the document that proves title, ownership. So we'll get into some more stuff here, I guess. Again, man cannot take part in commerce. You have to have a commercial vehicle, an agent in commerce, if you want to call it that. So the all capital letter representation of you represents a part of you, if you want to call it that. Your part of your unlimited capacity as a man is to gain a livelihood, to be involved in commerce, right? So you've got, for sure, two identities that we're gonna talk about today. So that's just, I'm trying to piece together more stuff as we go here. This document right here, the live birth record, the original, who has it? Government has it. Okay, before I write anything then, if the government has it, would they be holding it in trust? Okay, so they're the trustee of that document. Government is trustee. Right? Now, whatever this document signifies, whatever it created to be recorded with the government to protect your birthright. Again, we know our parents signed it, and if they signed it as on our behalf to create something for us, and the government is the trustee, and this is created for our benefit, what would that make us? Beneficiary. Whatever this thing is, we are beneficiary. Okay? Now, our parents created this. From a jurisdictional standpoint, because our parents are creations of God, whatever you want to call it, they have inherent rights. And I love the word inherent rights. It's the only one I use now. I don't use common law anymore. I should cover that real quick too. Common law is thousands of years of recorded case law by the same people who are screwing us over right now. Do you want to trust that? I don't trust that. I don't think they represent my inherent rights. So I've gone right back a jurisdiction higher yet to inherent rights. I have inherent unalienable rights. That's where my parents live. So anything that they created, what would be attached to whatever was created for me? Inherent rights, right? He who creates. Now, we'll skip over the other side of the column here and we'll get into, we'll start to break down this document a little bit more and what this represents. So it's got a government signature on it. It doesn't have a given or a surname. It has something that looks like the one that's on the live birth record your parents filed. So it's got a name. Does everybody have their birth certificate here with them today? Yeah, you got yours? Okay. So who's the trustee of that document? There you go. We are
Is that not a copy?
trustee. Nope. That is a certificate of title. And when you are holding it and in possession of it, you are the trustee of it. Doesn't matter if it's the original or not. Okay. Now, if this has a government signature on it, it's something they created. If we are the trustee of something that they created, who would be the beneficiary of it? Them. They are beneficiary.
Before you go any farther.
Yep.
With the registration one, if they give you a copy of it, are you therefore the,
No. Because it's a copy, even if it's a certified copy. It doesn't matter.
it's not
Yep.
right now?
If you want, write those down,
Okay,
and we can go over all that afterwards, because it's probably a guarantee I'm gonna answer any questions
yeah.
before I get to the end.
Thinking I was gonna get confused.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so they're the beneficiary of that one. Now let's take this a step further. Does government have inherent rights and freedoms? No, right? It's a fiction. Right? So whatever they create obviously can't have inherent rights and freedoms. Government is a statutory creation. They live in statutory jurisdiction. What would be attached to something they create? Statutory. Statutory jurisdiction, and we can talk, basically, I'll just call it statutes, right? It's bound by statutes. It exists in the jurisdiction it was created in. It can't leave that jurisdiction. So we're just going to say statutes down here. So this is the difference between, if you want to call it entities or vessels or whatever else you want to call it, these seem to be the big differences we can discern from these two documents between the jurisdiction of those two entities, the two vessels, the two trucks. So I'll elaborate down a little bit on that to give people a simplistic representation of what that means. So let's concentrate on this for a little while. If I have an F-350 in my driveway, and it's mine, and I just want to drive to work, who do I have to ask? Nobody. If I use it, who do I have to pay for its use? Nobody. If the truck is used by another party, who's the money owed to? If there's fines or fees for use, they're owed to me, because it's mine. My neighbor's got an identical F-350 in his driveway. And I don't like to drive my truck, right? Because I don't want to get the paint chipped and stuff like that, and it's brand new, and I like the smell of the new leather, so I'm going to drive my neighbor's truck. And I go over to his house, and I ring his doorbell, and I say, hey, I want to use your truck for 30 years. He says, yeah, okay, I'm not using it right now. It's his truck, he owns it. And he says, okay, well, if you're going to use my truck, how about $1 a kilometer for a fee for its use? And if you speed, you're going to have to pay a fine because I don't like people speeding in my truck. And if you break any of these rules that I don't want you to break when you're using my truck, you're going to have to pay me for breaking that rule also. Okay? Do I have the right to say, no, I don't have to pay you that? Of course, that just means I'm not using the truck. But if he tells me all that, and then I go ahead and I use his truck, what do I owe him? the fines and the fees he wanted. It's his truck. He's the beneficiary. He owns that piece of property that I've been using. Okay? So, if you're using the property of somebody else and they can charge you or fine you for it, that's a tax, right? You're going to pay taxes for the use. That's a terrible spelling of tax, but that's okay. Essentially, without going on about this ad nauseum, this is what's going on. What these are, and that's why I say what's the difference between these two, that's the most important part, and that is title. There's two different titles to two different trucks, right? Just because I own a black F-350 doesn't mean I can hop in any black F-350 on this planet and take it. It's not mine. Somebody else owns the title to that. Everything is title. That's probably one of the most important words we're ever going to talk about in any of my discussions. I don't even hear anybody else talking about that in any videos on the internet, period. It's just, it's ignored or they don't know about it, but title is very important, okay? If I hold the title of janitor at a corporation that I work at, can I walk into the Human Resources Department and start signing contracts? No, because my title is janitor. It doesn't carry that level of authority. When you get promoted at work, they don't promote you, we're promoting you to the position of dean. Oh, thanks. Wait, I am dean. No, you're promoted to this title, manager of this department. You're promoted to head of HR. You're promoted to whatever at the corporation. And with that title comes a new capacity. So the title is a status, and with that status comes a new capacity of authority. Well, I now have the authority to do this, okay? So the janitor of a corporation cannot walk into the boardroom while a meeting is in session and start making decisions for the corporation, because that's just not within his level of authority. It's not his title. So title is everything, whether it's a title to a truck, whether it's your title at work, or whether or not it's title to property. Title is everything, and your authority within that title. What authority does that title carry with it? Incredibly important concept, okay? So both these documents are evidence of title now, or they are title, in fact. What creates a trust? And the most basic, you guys can see that, I guess, right? Yeah, that's good. Just for the far people, too. A trust is created in the most basic of concepts when title to a piece of property is split, and you get two different titles, okay? And again, what is property? Well, in terms of land, it's right of use. Got to switch soon? Okay. It's right of use when it comes to property. So now, when it comes to land, I should say, sorry. A trust is created when title is split, and you have two different titles. You have equitable title, and you have legal title to something. And those are broken up, and legal title is sent to one party, and the other party maintains the equitable title. So basically, the legal title to something is gone and is held in trust by somebody else for their use. They can use the legal title for their use. It doesn't mean the actual physical property or the equity in the property, it just means the use of the legal title. And that's fine. That's what registration actually is when you register something. You're giving the legal title to somebody to hold in trust to protect you for the most part. It's a basic way of putting it. So I don't see that as a bad thing, because in admiralty law, especially in any court of law, equity is king. So if you're the one that's maintaining the equity in something, what do you care who has the legal title to something? It doesn't mean they can come into your house and start taking your TV or your house away from you. You own all the equity. You're the beneficiary of something that somebody else holds the legal title to. Okay? And vice versa. So it's a double-edged sword. So it's title. Okay? So the names look similar. And just tell me when we got to stop, by the way.